Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Beyond the Game. Beyond the Game brought to you by Batesville Chrysler Dodge Jeep, Gillenhout Funeral Home, Acra Automotive, Decatur County Recycling, Walters Tire, Hamilton's Heavy Law Office, and Buy-Rite Auto. Ryan Higginbotham, Tom Fleming, Jason Simpson live here in studio. Josh joining us live via satellite from Cheese Country. Gentlemen, happy Easter weekend. How was everybody's week in sports and just in general?
I have a hot take right off the bat. Whoever had
Oh
it.
my, he's coming in hot.
John Shire will, and I don't like the words always and never, but John Shire will never win a national championship as long as he's head coach at Duke. Plain and simple. He will not. He's had two of the most talented teams in back-to-back years. He had a 9-point lead with 4 minutes left last year in the national semifinal against Houston, lost that game, had UConn down 19 points in the first half, and they lose that game on a ridiculous call. How in the world do you not tell a kid there's only 10 seconds left on the clock in the game? Just hold it. Make them foul you, make them do something, but you don't try and throw it over two guys when you're 6'2", and you're throwing it over 6'8" guys trying to get it over them. It's just ridiculous, and it's coaching. And back before Houston, the year before that, they fell apart against NC State. And in the tournament, Duke should never lose to NC State. So, yeah, John Shire will never, ever, ever win a national championship as long as he's the head coach at Duke University.
Holy cow. I didn't have that on my bingo card to start the show or at all for the show this morning. I will say that. I didn't realize that's where we were going to go right off the top of the show. But, man, Tom, there is a whole lot to unpack there. You bring up Duke and you bring up John Shire. Let's rewind to the game that they played against St. John's before they played Connecticut. I have never seen, and I've been watching basketball a very long time, I have never seen elite talent like Duke has struggle so mightily at handling the basketball. From top to bottom on their roster. You've got McDonald's All-Americans, you got 5-star recruits, you've got a top 3 draft pick in the upcoming NBA draft on your roster, and they looked like they could come to my summer camp for kindergarten through 5th grade girls. Yep. The way that their inability to handle the basketball against pressure was just absolutely shocking to me. And their superior talent, and not only Boozer, but I keep forgetting the kid's name, the long athletic freshman that they have.
Yeah, is it Evans?
Evans. Yeah. I mean, he ended up making some plays that were outstanding, but holy cow, I honestly don't remember the last time I've seen a team with such elite talent struggle so mightily at one of the baseline fundamental things of the game. Because you think about it, the very first time you pick up a basketball, you're only going to do one of two things. You're either going to try to shoot it or you're going to try to bounce it and dribble it. So it's one of those, that is a skill that you've been working on literally since the time the ball first hit your hands. And let's not tap around the issue here. If you're going to Duke, again, you're one of the best in the country in your class, or nowadays in transfer portal at your school. Like, I was just shocked by that. And then I will get into the other side of it, but didn't know if you guys, if that stood out to you guys as well during that game.
The way that I kind of look at it is, and looking at their roster construction, and again, I'll get into Tom's point, but it looks to me like, especially in this era, but I think if you looked at this for the most part, unless they were outstanding freshmen, you need upperclassmen point guards in those situations. You look at the 4 Final Four teams, and outside of Illinois, because they don't really play a traditional point guard, but what Keaton Wagler has done as a freshman has been incredible. But you have Jaden Bradley for Arizona, who's a senior point guard. He's a mainstay at Arizona, and he has been. But he's a senior, and he was the Big 12 Player of the Year this year for Arizona. Michigan, although Elliot Cadeau wasn't great at North Carolina, he was serviceable, and he was a solid point guard. So what he's been able to do for Michigan has been incredible. UConn has, even though Braylon Mullins hit the shot, and I'm sure we'll get into that, but Alex Caravan isn't a point guard, but he is somebody that's pretty steady. And they have that Silas, I think it's Demery or Damari. Yep. He's a junior. I mean, he's averaging 6 assists a game, so he's comfortable under that pressure. And where Duke has kind of pigeonholed themselves in lately has been having those freshman point guards, or not a true point guard to handle the pressure. As good as Caden Boozer was as a point guard this year, and he was a McDonald's All-American, he was still a freshman. You talked about the other freshman, the shooter, and I forgot his name even though you said it.
Evans.
But Evans, yeah, incredible shooter, not a point guard. Their best player, Camden Boozer, not a point guard. So still to this day and age, even with the Cooper Flags of the world and the Camden Boozers of the world, you still have to have those point guards.
It's
Cameron Boozer. You still have to have those point guards that have that experience and are comfortable under pressure. And yeah, Duke hasn't had that the last couple years. Before we get to Ryan's, or circling back to Jason, I don't necessarily believe it, and we'll get into it about Jon Scheyer, but I do think that Tom believes that Jon Scheyer will not win a national championship at Duke.
I'm not going to say I wholeheartedly agree with Tom in his hot take. I think he 100% believes it. And because Duke has literally become the present day John Calipari Kentucky teams, I would not be the least bit surprised if that comes true. I don't think that I believe it, because with NIL and with the transfer portal, let's not forget Coach K still has an office at Cameron Indoor and in the Duke facility, and he is constantly bending the ear of Jon Scheyer and letting him know his thoughts and opinions on how things should be run. And he still casts an incredibly enormous shadow on that program. It's much like what it would have been at IU had Bob Knight been unceremoniously fired. I think he probably would have been the same way, still would have been around the program all those years after he retired, whenever that may have been, had he stuck around. But I think there will come a time where Duke is going to get 2, maybe 3 big-time transfer studs to go along with their freshman studs that can kind of be that steadying force, because they've got the experience, and then you bring in the uber-talented Boozers of the world to play alongside of them. So I don't think I agree with never. I wouldn't say I would be surprised, though, if it never happens, but I definitely think Tom fully believes it.
Ryan?
Yeah, going back to just Duke in general, you look at the entire year, and it's everybody's point, they don't have a point guard. And Cameron Boozer's mentality all year was bully ball. That, not only is that probably not going to translate to the NBA, but when you don't have a traditional point guard, you can't win big games. In the college era we live in now, a 1 versus 16 is not necessarily a 1 versus 16. It is a 16 seed who might have 30 wins, they might have 20, or they might, have squeaked into the tournament. But when you don't have a traditional point guard, not only can you not play the style of basketball that is, the style of basketball that is played today, you can't disguise it at all. And it's the reason, it's the exact same reason that Kentucky struggled all year. They had no traditional point guard, and you can't run, set offenses off that. But going to, Tom's hot take, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, Jon Scheyer is he's a good coach. I think he can, draw up a couple good plays, but when it matters most, it seems like not only him, but his entire team behind him, including his assistants, don't seem to grasp at what they have to do to be, do what they have to do to win the game in those big games. It happened, last year, and, especially the St. John's game, it really just surprised me. They didn't really look like a full team until maybe there was 2 minutes left on the clock. And then UConn, we see it every year. There's a big lead, and then next thing you know, second half hits, and the team who's down by 30 wins, But I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily believe that it'll never happen, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, it was pretty easy. Josh, if you could have seen my face when I was saying it, you would know that I believe it. It's tough to be the guy after the guy. You want to be the guy after the guy after the guy, because there's just so much pressure. But the Duke people out there are going to spin it that Mike Krzyzewski went to the Final Four 4 or 5 times before he actually won it all. Mm-hmm. So, he's made it to one Final Four, lost unceremoniously. I don't know. Jason, you talked about bringing in, or Josh, whichever one of you said it, about bringing in some transfer players. Are they going to be willing to risk losing some of those McDonald's All-Americans? Because you're going to bring some of those kids in. They don't want to sit. They want to play. They intend to be there for 1 and get out of there, or 2 at the most. So, that's a big change if they do that, and it's kind of a risk reward. Easy for me to say, reward thing.
Well, I don't know though that they're not going to have to be like IU and bring in an entirely new roster and things like that. They would be doing. You want to talk about being able to be selective, because you're bringing in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 McDonald's All-Americans each and every year. We're talking maybe needing 2 older guys out of the transfer portal, if they would do that. Now, I know, was it 2 years ago they got Gillis from Purdue? Yeah. Guys like that, but kind of to your point, it's going to need to be a point guard when you get into March. And, the thing is, people are talking like Jon Scheyer can't coach. I mean, he's been at Duke now for, was this his 4th or 5th year?
4.
He's been to the national semifinal and was 10 seconds away from getting back to the Final Four, and that was only their 3rd loss of the season. So I think he might know a thing or two about playing, but, just like we talk about all the time when it comes to IU and their roster construction, it's a different problem. And, it's like I said, I compare it to I don't want to say mess, because they were good every year too, but the quandary that Calipari would find himself in every year when he was still at Kentucky. They would be uber talented, but at some point you're going to run into that team that is maybe not as talented, but very close to as talented as you, and they have the experience. They've got the miles on the tires, and they've been through those battles, unlike what your young kids have, and experience finds a way to win out.
Well, to think about it, Duke led that game for 39 minutes and 59.6 seconds. And the problem is it's a 40-minute game.
Yeah, I still think that Jon Scheyer is going to win a national title at Duke. I think Duke did it the right way. They kind of had a head coach in waiting, and if you look back at some of the high-profile successions in college basketball and how they have seemingly failed way more often than not, if not almost every time. You take Indiana right here in our backyard. Obviously, Mike Davis following Bob Knight. Yes, Mike Davis made the national championship game in 2002, but you can't say that he was successful in maintaining IU's long-term success. And then you bring us to present day with Indiana. North Carolina, they had Bill Guthridge and then Matt Doherty and then Roy Williams, but Roy Williams was kind of, to your point, Tom, the guy after the guy after the guy. You go and look at Kansas. That was probably the best case scenario for Kansas, getting Bill Self right after Roy Williams. Bill Self has obviously been incredibly successful at Kansas. But Syracuse, Jim Boeheim was there for 47 years. They've already recycled a coach. Villanova with Jay Wright, they've had a massive drop-off. Virginia, although they were a 3 seed this year, after Tony Bennett left, they had a major drop-off. So it's not easy following the guy, but John Shire has done as good as you could possibly do following the best college basketball coach of all time, and Mike Krzyzewski. And you have to find a way to get that experience, and Duke's going to do that. Duke's going to figure that out. Duke's going to have the resources to figure that out. I just kind of hate that the NCAA has put college basketball in the situation that they're in with NIL and how it is. Purdue did the right thing and having a coach in waiting with Matt Painter following Gene Cady. But the way that the situation that college basketball is in now, I'm reading message boards about IU, and they have to replace basically all of their roster. And when you get to the situation where you're saying at a place like Indiana, who doesn't necessarily have the national pull of Duke or Kentucky or Kansas, but they certainly have a strong regional pull and they certainly have resources. When you're sitting here saying, we think they have $14 to $15 million to spend, and these guys are out of their price range. These guys, this is like, it's not fun anymore to follow college basketball recruiting. It's fun to follow college basketball, but the recruiting side of it just isn't fun. If you have a team like BYU that can come in and just say, all right, well, we want this guy, we're going to give him $7 million or $6 million. Why is that fun? Like that's not, it's not the way that college basketball should be. You should get people in there, develop them, have them stay 2, 3, 4 years. If they're great, they can stay 1 year. But there shouldn't only be one case that we can think of off the top of our head where you've signed high school kids and developed them, and that being Purdue. That should be the norm, not the outlier. BYUs of the world should be the outlier. But I want to get back to this place, and it's never going to happen, and I know never is a long time, but I loved when we hated Duke because everybody hated J.J. Redick, or you loved Duke because J.J. Redick was there 3 or 4 years, where you knew where the kids went to high school and that they were going to be returning to Indiana or North Carolina or any of these other schools. So the fact that all recruiting is and all roster building now is who has the most money, to me, that is right up there with the NCAA expanding the NCAA tournament to 74 teams. I don't know which is a bigger blunder for the NCAA, expansion of the tournament or the NIL, but it's just not the same anymore. And that's why Duke can still win one, and I think Shire will because they have the resources and they have the pull. But it's just college basketball is just not the same.
Well, I'll answer your question for you. It's NIL, and it's not even close. But, kind of touching on Tom's point about the actual game itself last week. Now, granted, I am not, and you guys know me well enough to know, I'm not trying to act like I invented coaching and know everything there is to know about it. But after that game was over, and Mullins did what an Indiana kid is supposed to do, I was just in awe, in shock is really what I was, that the team that spent a good portion of the season ranked number 1, and again, a roster littered with 5 stars and McDonald's All-Americans and things, melted down the way that they did in that last 10 seconds. And, Tom, I think you said it, so much of it goes back to coaching. Because I know, and I can't even remember who I was talking to about it, but I got into, like, I put myself in that situation, and I think back when my teams are in those situations, there's a timeout called, under 10 seconds to go, we'll very quickly draw up a set that they already know most of the time, just as a reminder, but then we spend a majority of that time out reminding them. We'll start with, does the person out of bounds have the baseline? And if they do, we'll say, don't forget you can run the baseline to get open. We talk about going to meet your passes. We talk about, you know, we call them lollipop passes, but the pass that he threw that got intercepted was a lollipop pass. You pulled the pin on the grenade and just threw it and hoped is what it was. But don't panic. It's under 10 seconds. You cannot get a violation. So worst case scenario in that instance, and again, this is where you have to know whose possession is it. Because worst case scenario, if you have possession on the possession arrow, just curl up over the basketball and make them either foul you or get a jump ball, because now you're closer to half court. So now you've got different options on sets that you run and out of bounds plays and things. But they're either going to have to foul you or the clock's going to run out and you win.
But if you do that, then you're giving Duke the chance to go in front because they're in the bonus. And if they knock down 2 free throws, then you're a point down with even less time on the clock.
No, because in the moment, though, Duke was ahead. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, Duke was up 2. And so if I'm in Jon Scheyer's shoes, I am because I have to believe, because, I mean, we've done it since I started back in 1999 with Keith Hipskin, and we would go situations, and you do this in practice day after day after day after day. You'll put a time and score up on the clock, and you play to the situation so that when it comes in a game, you don't panic, because you've been there and practiced it before, and you always go back to and you rely on the things that you've practiced over and over and over again. And so we spend so much time just reiterating and reminding our players exactly what the situation of the game is. And we've been here before, you know. Make sure if you catch it close to the 10-second line that you don't establish, because this is what I love about basketball fans and stuff. Like, people don't understand, and this has been probably 15 years ago. They basically removed the language from the rule book. The 10-second line does not exist until possession is established. And so people lose their minds. Oh, it's over back. That line might as well not be there until they establish possession. And so, you know, you have to remind your kids, once you establish, you got to watch where you catch and don't pivot and do all these things. And then it's got to be 3 points of contact. That's both feet and the basketball. So technically I say, if a kid would catch with both feet on their side, but the ball is caught on the opposite side of the line, they could technically take off running to the other end of the, well, they would have to dribble, but they would have to take off dribbling. Now, again, that's going to take a good official to remember that and understand that, but all 3 points haven't been established. So anyway, I was just shocked that a team of that level melted down in that way and literally looked like they had no idea time and score situation. And I mean, Tom, you've been at a lot of our games. Josh has been a whole year with me. Every single game, every game that we play, you will hear me say time and score. And it's not just so I can hear the sound of my voice. That triggers something in the girls. They are to look up. They see, they know, they feel, they see the situation of the game, and they know how to handle it depending on what the scoreboard says.
Yeah, I mean, you know that they work on that stuff more than any other place of basketball, high school or the pros. College is working on that just as much. I mean, it's just look, I don't know if it was pressure or what it was. You know, guys have to want to get fouled, and you have to be okay with stepping up to the line and knocking down a couple of free throws. And it just looked like none of them wanted to get fouled. And if you watch Jon Scheyer kind of lost it in the moment. He was, you know, motioning for Boozer to make that pass to 2 wide open guys. And for UConn, it was kind of like a fire drill, right? So it was a no-lose situation. If they create that turnover, they end up getting what they get. If they give them the open pass over top of two guys and they get a dunk, the game's over anyway. So at some point in time, one of the three guys that touched the ball in the backcourt for Duke under 10 seconds just needed to accept getting fouled and stepping up and going to the line. And that obviously didn't happen, which led to Braylon Mullins hitting that incredible shot. But yeah, I mean, part of it's coaching, part of it's players, and you know, it's just a painful way to lose that you're not going to see very often.
Hey, you know, I was wondering now, on the other side of the coin for that game, is Dan Hurley now the villain in college basketball now? Is he the most unliked coach in the country? A lot of people don't like the way he operates.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he would be up there. He would be number one if I had to think. I mean, you can look at guys like Mick Cronin, but he doesn't win enough. I think Calipari, now that the NIL is a thing, I think he's kind of moved off the back burner of that because everybody's paying players now, not just allegedly John Calipari paying players. So, yeah, I would definitely think he's at least Danny Hurley's at least the most polarizing coach in college basketball.
Good choice of words.
And I will say, I can't get enough of Danny Hurley because it's must-see TV because you never know what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and that, like Izzo's been talking about it throughout the tournament. He's been asked about it. And then I saw a clip, they asked Mick Cronin about it. You know, this whole idea of coaching kids hard. And, you know, we talked about it last week. That's what Danny Hurley's going to do. And I'm here for all of it. I mean, we went through it last week, but I think he gets such a bad rap because now, I know this is going to be hard to believe, Tom. I'm not saying that Bob Knight walked on water. He was far from perfect, and his approach at times crossed the line. But different day and age, mm-hmm. not saying it was okay, but different things were allowed to happen. That line was much further out in front of you. It was much more difficult to cross, and even when Bob Knight crossed it, he was Bob Knight and people didn't care. But I like the fact that Danny Hurley has a standard and there is no bend in that standard. You are going to meet this standard, and if you don't, I am going to hold you accountable, and it's going to be through my words and my voice and my tone and things like that. He is going to hold your feet to the fire, and you're going to reach that standard. Well, what's it done for him? I mean, he's only won 2 national titles and is in the Final Four again. I think his approach is bearing fruit, is it not? I mean, he's doing a great job, but I would say because we as a society have gotten so Charmin soft, I would say he probably is, if not the most disliked, at least the most polarizing, because there are some soft people out there that get their panties in a twist with the way that he behaves himself. And look, it's not great all the time. I'm not trying to excuse the way that he acts on the sideline and the things that the way that he approaches officials and things. But again, you want to argue with the results, good luck. You're going to lose that argument.
Ryan?
Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike Danny Hurley at all. I think he's fantastic. Honestly, everything he does, from his mannerisms to just simply coaching, is phenomenal to me. I will say the almost headbutt
that was so weird.
That happened. I don't know what he was doing there, and I'm very glad because the ref. We could have had a big moment where Duke could have won that game in a way if he could have called a technical. So I'm very glad that the ref understood that moment. But I love Danny Hurley. Is he probably the most disliked? I would say so. I mean, there's a few others that have other reasons to be disliked, but he's definitely, to Josh's point, he's definitely the most polarizing. And I think not only that, we are a couple days away from him being talked about as
Nick Saban, the present day Nick Saban.
One, I wouldn't say he would go down as the greatest basketball coach of all, never. But if they do win a third in 4 years, I will say he will have to be in the talks as at least a top 10 college basketball coach.
Oh, shoot, I think he's top 10 already, but you could put him in the top 5 conversation. And, speaking of disliking coaches, a guy that, for no reason whatsoever did I have to not like him, but I could not stand Brad Underwood. Couldn't stand him.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I've heard him on like 3 or 4 different interviews throughout this week. I really like that guy. Like, the persona the way he carries himself on the sideline is so different than what he is when he starts to speak. And I really like the way that he thinks about things. And like, I have a newfound respect for him. Now, I hate the fact that he's at Illinois because I can't stand Illinois, but I got to say, my eyes were open to him, and I think I kind of like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Danny Hurley would have to go up there at least, if not in the top 3, the top 5. I mean, if he wins on Monday, if they make it to Monday and he wins, he'll now have 3 titles, 23, 24, and 26, 3 out of the last 4, and only coaching since 2010. Bob Knight had 3 titles in 42 years. Dean Smith had 2 titles in 36 years. Mike Krzyzewski had 5 titles in 47 years. So, I mean, if Danny Hurley would bolt right up in there, to me, inside the top 3, and I have to put him up there because I'm the one that's sitting here saying that Curt Cignetti's the second best coach of all time. So that has nothing to do with me having my crimson-colored glasses on either, obviously. But I also said if Cignetti wins another title this year, then he's the greatest coach of all time, and that would only be 2 titles and not 7 like Nick Saban. So, yeah, Danny Hurley, 3 titles in 4 years would be incredible, and to me, he would be up there with the legends of coaching.
When we look at the tournament as it's played itself out this year, I was always one of those guys who said it's better to let some of these mid-majors in. You're going to get upset. You're going to do things like that. But this tournament by itself this year has totally knocked that idea out of my line of thinking, because what you've gotten these bigger schools playing each other, and this has been from the first Thursday to today, which is national semifinal day. This may be the best tournament basketball-wise that I've seen in a lot of years, and you really haven't had that marquee upset that everybody's talking about, or that Cinderella that gets to the Sweet 16. And I'm not saying I don't ever want that to happen again, because those stories are fun. But, man, you get these big boys slugging it out against each other game after game after game. This has been an absolutely entertaining tournament to watch so far.
I think when you get into the Cinderellas and everything, once you get to the Elite Eight, the majority of the time those Cinderellas have lost in the Sweet 16. I missed those teams, those double-digit seeds going to the Sweet 16. Now, you're always going to, like I said, once you get to the Final Four and the Elite Eight, you're not going to have those 14s or 13s or 12 seeds very often. I just don't like the fact that one of the only double-digit seeds, and there may have been 2, I can't think off the top of my head, but Texas was an 11 seed, and they were in the Sweet 16. Other than that, you had, I would say, underachieving power conference teams making it to it, like Iowa. Again, Iowa had 1 more Big Ten win than Indiana did this year. So they made it to the, Elite Eight? Yeah, Elite Eight. But they weren't a Cinderella story because they were an underachieving power conference team. Once we get to the second weekend, I don't want to see those Cinderella stories advance. Unless they're playing Purdue, right? But I want them to make it to the second weekend and then lose, so you can have those matchups that you're talking about, Jason. Those those UConn matchups with Duke and Duke and St. John's and all that. So I personally miss the Cinderellas. I wish it would come back, but in this day and age with NIL, that's probably going to never happen again.
Well, let me add, off topic from that particular game. There was Bleacher Report a couple weeks ago had a report that what the Pacers would do if they ended up with the number 1 overall draft pick.
Oh, I didn't see this.
Bleacher Report at that point said that Cameron Boozer would be the pick if the Pacers had number 1. Now, Ryan, you said it.
Now, was this just their thought, or there was some?
They're talking heads, putting it all together on what they thought and talking to general managers and all that.
No kidding.
But, Ryan, you talked about it. Cameron Boozer, he wanted to play bully ball all year. He's not going to be able to do that in the NBA. Plus, you have DeBansa, whatever his name is out there, who could be a generational talent. They say Boozer would be a fit because then he could go right into that power forward role. But when there's a player like AJ out there, I don't care what the fit is. I want him on my team.
One thing, last night the Kings defeated the Pelicans. So even if the Pacers win 2 of their final 5 games, they still have the best lottery odds. So you have to be in that top 4 to get the best lottery odds. One thing that I saw on that, Tom, and I don't know if it was the same writer, but there's a guy that follows the Pacers, and he kind of put out a mock scenario where the Pacers land number 1, which has never happened in their franchise history. They've never even had a number 1 pick overall play for their franchise. They're the only team in the NBA to have that distinction. One thing that they said, at least this guy said, in taking Cameron Boozer, was trading down because trades can't become official or whatever until July 9th or whatever that might be. The draft happens before that. But trading down to number 3, picking up an unprotected first-round pick from I think it was the Kings, and they would trade up, the Pacers would take DeBonsta, the Kings would take Boozer and get a pick. I don't necessarily agree with Cameron Boozer being the best fit for the Pacers. I don't know where that's coming from. I think Cameron Boozer is going to be a great NBA player. He did shoot over 35% from the three-point line this year, and in the NBA, roles change from what they did in college. I think that's what Duke asked Cameron Boozer to be, and I think that's where Cameron Boozer was most successful. But he averaged, I think over 4 assists. There was a stat that they put on there. There's 2 players in the history of college basketball. I think it was to average like 25 points, over 10 rebounds, and over 4 assists a game. It was Cameron Boozer and Larry Bird. That's pretty good company to be in. I just don't see where Cameron Boozer is a fit for the Pacers. You have Zubac that's coming, that's going to be the starting center for the Pacers. You have Pascal Siakam, who's only 30 years old. I mean, it's not like he's going anywhere at that 4 position. What they need is exactly what you said, Tom. They need a stretch wing, a bigger wing that can, hit threes, a 3-and-D type. And DeBonsta has as much upside as anybody in the NBA draft this year.
Because DeBonta 6'8", 6'9"?
6'9".
I mean,
6'9".
Shoo. That's just different, and not that Boozer isn't, but my thing with Boozer is, could he and Josh, to your point, your roles and things change once you go from college to the pros, and you have to be that. Your puzzle piece has to fit into the puzzle when you get into the NBA. They're not going to create the puzzle around you like they do in college. But just watching the way he plays, not in any way questioning his athleticism or anything like that, but is he built to play at the pace that the Pacers play at?
Which one?
Right.
Boozer.
Oh, yeah, I don't think so.
Well, once Halliburton's back in and he's running the ship, I mean, remember last year that finals run that they made, their pace of play is ungodly fast, and it's so much fun to watch. And you've got to be and it's not just in transition. Their half court offense is snappy and always moving and things. So, again, if the Pacers take him, I trust their front office enough to know that he's going to fit and what they see in him. But man, and you can't forget about Peterson at Kansas, but there's just something about him. I don't know. Like, no, take the basketball skill side out of it. I just always hurt. Kind of looks like he's soft, the prima donna. It's all about him. That ain't gonna work when you get to the Pacers, because I don't care if you come out and have a rookie of the year type season. You're still at best third in the pecking order in Indy behind Halliburton and Siakam. And so I don't know. I think I'm on the DeBonsa train, but we'll see how it plays out, I guess.
Of the top 5 guys that are in this NBA draft, which is A.J. DeBonsta, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, Caleb Wilson from North Carolina, who got hurt but may fit the Pacers better than anybody not named DeBonsta, and Darius Acup, who was incredible for Arkansas. Darren Peterson, to me, on the big board of what the Pacers would do, is number 5 on that big board.
But if they get 5, it goes to the Clippers.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, if they have a top 4 pick.
Okay.
I'm saying if they have the number 1 pick, and I had to rank what I thought the Pacers would do based off who they're going to take 1 through 5, to me, Darren Peterson is 5th.
Gotcha.
Based off of everything that Kevin Pritchard has done and how the Pacers organization is run. Not that he's not the best player or doesn't have the most potential, but I just don't see that being a cultural fit with how they like to play basketball and how they run stuff based off what we saw him at Kansas. To me, that list, I don't be surprised if the Pacers have the number 1 pick and they don't take DeBonsta. It's whenever the Pacers see, and to your point, Jason, like, whoever they take, I'm going to trust because they deserve that from what they've done. But whenever the Pacers seemingly have something that seems so easy to do, they zigzag and go a different direction. So I'm not saying that, if they have number 1, they maybe do take DeBonsta, but I could see something where they trade down, kind of like the Celtics did a couple years ago, where they drafted who's the guy that was I can see him in my head right now. I had his name. But anyway, they Markelle Fultz. They drafted Markelle Fultz, number 1, traded him to the 76ers to get the 3rd pick. And who did the Celtics take with the 3rd pick? Jason Tatum.
Yep.
And they got a first-round pick from the 76ers, an unprotected first-round pick. So that's kind of what I see maybe the Pacers doing. Whenever you think that the Pacers are zigging, they zag. So I don't know what the heck they're going to do if they happen to land that number 1 overall pick. By the way, I don't think they're going to land the number 1 overall pick because, A, it's the Pacers, and B, for some reason, them in Utah got fined for tanking when right now I'm looking on ESPN sources, NBA investigating Bucks and Giannis's health. Well, I mean, they won 30 games this year, and he's not been playing, so, cherry picking from the NBA.
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think about what the Pacers would do and Boozer and DeBonsta and all that?
I think if they chose, now don't get me wrong, Kevin Pritchard in the front office, they know what they're doing. They've made plenty of moves to for us to be able to trust them. But I do think if they take Cameron Boozer, it's almost like the Colts drafting Anthony Richardson. He's going to be the only player that I just don't know about. Darren Peterson, if you take out, prima donna stuff, he is one of the best players you could watch. But you don't get to watch him a lot because he's never on the court. That round of 32 game, Kansas against St. John's, where he kind of took over the last little bit. He looked phenomenal. But, I think overall, in my own opinion, there's only one option if they have the number 1 overall pick. He is a freak of nature, and that's AJ DeMonsta. He is... I truly believe out of all of the players that, even if they somehow get screwed out of the lottery, which is still a possibility, and they go 5 through 9, there are still multiple players that they could draft. But if you have, by some chance, the number 1 overall pick, it's got to be DeMonsta, just because... Okay, I guess the way I look at it is, imagine if Giannis and Halliburton played together. That he's a smaller, less physical version of Giannis Antetokounmpo, who can run better, who is faster. He can stretch it a little bit more. He can be outside more. But the thing that I think will set him apart from the rest, he can play the pace. No pun intended, but he can play the pace that the Pacers need.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some good options. They have to, they're going to, if they finish in the bottom 4 odds, they have a 52.7% chance to land in the top 4, 48% chance to not. So it's almost a coin flip. And if they land in that top 4, stroke of genius from Kevin Pritchard, not only protecting it in the top 4, not only getting a center for the future, but way back when, right before or right at the start of the playoffs or right at the end of the season, they traded back for their first-round pick. This pick was traded 12 months ago, and I think it was New Orleans maybe had it, but they traded back for their number 1 overall pick before Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. So in another stroke of genius from Kevin Pritchard, reacquiring that pick. And then, well, unfortunately, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, but now they're in the situation where, not outside of what the Warriors were in a few years ago when Steph Curry missed a bunch of games, Klay Thompson missed the whole season, and they just took the wrong player, but they got the number 2 overall pick and took James Wiseman. So they just took the wrong player. If the Pacers are fortunate enough to be in that top 4 or number 1 overall, they've got to hit with that. And if they do hit with it and they do take DeMonsta, who we all agree with should be the number 1 overall pick, they're the favorites for the East next year. And they're right back in it. So if they land outside of the top 4, they could still be one of the favorites in the East because, well, they just took Oklahoma City to 7 games last year. But yeah, they're going to need to land in that top 4.
And, you talk about the landscape in the East. Cleveland has not been what people thought they would be this year. And, I mean, I don't see a huge change coming for them. The Knicks are showing they're still the Knicks. They just can't seem to win the big ones when they really need to. So they're showing themselves. So right now you're really looking at just outside the Pacers at full strength, you're only looking at 2 teams. Detroit, who is still young and getting better, and they're going to be the number 1 seed in the East. But then you've got the Celtics, who every day that passes get a little more healthy, and that's not good for anybody else in the East. But when everybody's at full strength, you've got to think it's basically just a 3-team race with the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't see I don't see anybody else that's going to step up there and make that jump. I've been completely out on the NBA this year, so I couldn't even tell you. Outside of the Pistons, somewhat surprising, even though we kind of saw that in the playoffs last year.
Where was that called? Right here on Beyond the Game. Thank you
Beyond
very
the
much.
Game, shocker. But yeah, I mean, I'm ready to get back into the NBA. I need the Pacers to be back there because I don't like anybody else in the NBA and I don't like any other team in the NBA. So, man, I I don't know. You guys, what do you think right now? Do the Pacers land the number? Give me your odds for them landing the number 1 pick, and then give me what your odds that they land in the top 4 and keep their pick.
6.913%. Yes.
That they get the number 1 overall pick.
Yes.
Now,
and what are your odds, Tom, that they land inside the top 4?
7.243.
So it's not happening.
No, if I say it, hopefully I'm wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but we can't have nice things. So
very true.
I'm sure you guys have much higher odds than I do.
I honestly, I think it's going to happen just because the basketball gods and the stars and the moons align and all those things. And, sometimes you have to face adversity before you get to that light at the end of the tunnel. And the Pacers, everybody thought, last year this is it. And then, Halliburton gets hurt. Well, there's your adversity. So you got close to the top of the mountain. You face this adversity, and now you're going to be given a basketball gift. You're going to get your franchise stud back. Granted, he had to miss a year. But because of that adversity that you're facing, you're going to be given the gift of, and you had to go through a season where, boy, are they not good. Whoo, baby. They're Now, granted, I do think they are tanking, and they can say they're not, but I think they are. But I just think that I have all the faith in the world that they're going to end up not only in the top 4, I think they end up with the number 1 pick. I really think that.
They have 5 games left. They play one team who has less than 43 wins. So there's a good shot at losing out. Siakam is pretty much shut down for the rest of the year, which is good news. But if they lose out and they're in, a certain, pecking order of things, they would have a 52.1% chance if they land based on record. They would land. It's a 52.1% chance to retain 1 through 4.
And isn't it 14 point something to get number 1?
And then it's 14 point something to get the number 1 overall pick. So if they lose out, and hopefully somebody else loses another game, they statistically have half odds to retain 1 through 4, and then have very little chance to get the number 1 overall pick. But I think we would all take a 1 through 4 instead of, obviously 5 through 9. Because if it goes 5 through 9, they'd have to, obviously they'd have to win out for that to happen probably. But if they get 5 to 9, it goes to the Clippers. So, but I don't know. I would assume they're going to probably win one more game. It's probably going to be against the Cavs or something. But I would give them this is going to sound bad. I'd give them an 85% chance to get 1 through 4, but they're going to get number 4.
Why all of a sudden? Why is the NBA the only league that supposed tanking is a problem? Like nobody, the NHL's not doing anything. The MLB, they're not really doing anything. I mean, what they've kind of put in place a little bit. You can't have back-to-back number 1 overall picks. The NFL isn't a problem. Why is it the NBA? Why does Adam Silver make problems out of things that aren't problems? There's a lot of bad teams in the NBA, but the way that the NBA is structured is you either have players that you draft that you can pay a bunch of money, or you have 2 or 3 stars, and it's the NBA's fault that the stars don't want to go to these other, I'm not going to say smaller market teams, but to these other teams. So it's because of what they've done, you have all these teams, the separation is so great. And yeah, you can say that the Pacers are tanking. Pascal Siakam played last night and had 30 points. And they're 18-59, and he still had 30 points. Like, it's, Nebhard's been hurt. I mean, they've all been hurt. We've gone down this, but why is it just the NBA that it's a problem? Adam Silver, oh, man. Well, don't get me started on him, but the NFL doesn't have this problem. It's just the worst team gets the first pick. And I don't know. It only seems to have come to light because of the Indiana Pacers. It's crazy to me.
Adam Silver, the only thing that he's done right in the entire time he's been commissioner was his first week when he got Donald Sterling kicked out of the NBA, the owner of the Clippers.
And he's been the commissioner for a long time,
Yeah.
so that's not a good track record.
You know, but it's like this 65 game that you have to play in order to be able to be all NBA, to be eligible for MVP, player of the year, or defensive player of the year, all those kind of things. Cade Cunningham from the Pistons got a collapsed lung during a game, and he's not going to meet that 65 standard because he was hurt early in the season too. Luka Doncic, he's not going to be able to meet. He's at 64. And 2 games that he missed was because he was at home with his wife because she was having a baby. And so now he's not qualified to be all NBA based on the year he's had. It's ridiculous.
Well, we'll get into that talk after the break.
Yeah.
Beyond the Game brought to you by Batesville, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Gillenhow Funeral Home, Acra Automotive, Decatur County Recycling, Walters Tire, Hamilton Deputy Law Office, and Buy Right Auto. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Beyond the Game. Beyond the Game brought to you by Batesville Chrysler Dodge Jeep, Gillett Howe Funeral Home, Acra Automotive, Decatur County Recycling, Walters Tire, Hamilton's Heavy Law Office, and Buy-Ride Auto. Ryan Higginbotham, Tom Fleming, Jason Simpson live here in studio. Josh joining us live via satellite from parts unknown. We started to kind of touch on, Tom was mentioning the postseason awards in the NBA, and, you know, I don't think this is really a hot take, but I'm going to throw this out there. You know, there's a lot of talk about the MVP this year, and is it going to be Jokic? Is it going to be SGA? Is it going to be Wemby? Is it going to be Luka? Obviously now Luka won't be eligible because he won't meet that threshold. Wemby is starting to tiptoe. He's not quite there yet, but he's starting to get into the realm that Michael Jordan lived in, where you might as well just give him the MVP award every year because he is the best player in the league. But he has not taken that mantle yet from the guy who should win the MVP this year, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but man, first of all, just watch him. But if that doesn't do it for you, and you're more of an analytical, statistical type person, look at his numbers and where they land, not just this year, but historically in the NBA. It should be a no-brainer that SGA is the MVP this year.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, he's all foul baiting and everything that he does. I mean, he's been incredible. That's for sure. You know, I'm going back to the NBA and the games played. So on the table for the NBA and what they've discussed is expansion into Seattle and Las Vegas. So you're going to have, now you would have go up from 30 teams to 32. Your talent would be spread out even more. And they're also talking about going from 82 games to 73 or 65 or something along those lines. And they say that they want to do that because it's, injuries, and then guys wouldn't have to rest and all those things. I call bull on all of that. Again, this is an NBA problem. This isn't an NFL problem or an MLB problem or an NHL problem. It's an NBA problem, and it's all because of what you've talked about on the show, Tom, about how, Adam Silver has allowed the players to run the league. And now you have this 65-game thing that we're talking about that you have to play.
Wouldn't you have to make it an even number, though?
Probably.
I mean, so that way you're not, because then every other year you would have it would be imbalanced on your home games, and that's revenue and things.
Go ahead. Sorry, I lost where I was at. No, I lost where I was at. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe 74 was thrown out there, or 66 or something like that. But what Adam Silver has done with this 65-game thing is, if you don't qualify for the All-NBA team or in any postseason awards, that's directly tied to the compensation you can get. So if you make the All-NBA team, I think it's 2 years, then you're eligible to sign a contract for $40 million more or something crazy. Like, it's all tied to how many games you're eligible to play, and you do play. Nothing that the NBA does makes any sense. Like a shorter season, do you guys honestly believe that with a shorter season, LeBron James would not take a game off to rest?
Well, definitely. I mean, and part of it for me is if they cut games, they're going to have to give some of that TV money back. And those NBA owners don't want to give any of that back. And the thing you were talking about, Josh, with all NBA, that type of thing, if you don't make an all-star team or all-NBA team, you can get 25% of the salary cap. If you qualify for that super, that means you can get 30%. And that's where you get into those real big numbers of the salary cap that you can have for one person.
Yeah. So, I mean, my thing would be, if that's fine, if that's what you want to do. But right now, let's just use good old LeBron James for argument's sake. I mean, he's making, let's call it $51 million a year. a little less than that. So he's making $621,000 per game. So call it $622,000 per game. And you multiply that by 16 games because we're cutting it from 82 to 66. LeBron, do you want to give back $10 million? That's fine, LeBron. You can give back $10 million. Donovan Mitchell, do you want to give back $10 million? Because you're playing less games. We've contracted to play less games. We can do that. Jason Tatum, who has the highest cap hit in the league at $62 million. Do you want to give back $14 million, Jason Tatum? We can cut the games. So, yeah, to your point, Tom, there's give and take. They're going to have to give money back. And I don't think if I was an NBA player, if I was Jason Tatum, I'd say, well, wait a minute. Just leave it at 82. I don't care. I'll take the extra $10 million to step on the court to play basketball 16 more times over 365 days.
Another reason,
a lot of people would sign up for that.
You know, one of the other reasons that the owners wouldn't want to give that money back is because of the new contract that the WNBA signed with their players, because any of those NBA owners that own a WNBA team, their costs are going way up. I mean, the salary cap went from $1.5 million to $7 million. Caitlin Clark would have been making $78,000 this next season. She's going to make $527,000.
As she should.
And the max salary went from $250,000 to $1.4 million. So
who's going to be getting that this year? Asia Wilson, Brianna
Stewart.
I
don't know. Do the Fever give it to Kelsey Mitchell to keep her around for a year? She's an unrestricted free agent.
Well, pretty much everybody in the league is an unrestricted free agent.
Yeah, that's true. 177 out of 123.
Shoot.
Are they even playing this year?
Yeah, they signed their deal a couple weeks ago.
Did they?
Yeah. Big money.
Josh, are they even playing this year?
Yeah, I have no idea.
How interested he is. I love it. And, you know, that kind of brings us to another topic I saw. And, I have to tread very lightly in the way that I say this because I am not meaning anything negative by this. And do I want WNBA players to get paid more? Sure, why not? You know, I think the product and the talent level is getting better. It's still, there are times because, like, you know, Josh, we'll have it on because maybe Caitlin Clark was going to play and you and I would have a game on for whatever reason at the same time for about 5 minutes, and we would just text back and forth laughing through text just saying these are supposed to be the best players in the world, and they'll go 8 straight trips and hit the bottom of the backboard twice and throw it through the rim the wrong way and airball 4 in a row. It still ain't great, but my point is it came out, you know, Dawn Staley got a big raise, and she's pushing for women's coaches to get paid at the same level that the men's coaches do. And again, I'm all for equal pay in a lot of avenues. I'm all for that. But in something like coaching, you are in charge of something. You're in charge of a team that is in a revenue-driven sport or your profession. And I'm sorry. Now, Dawn Staley is probably one of the few. You know, you could say Kim Mulkey because I think LSU draws incredibly well. I think Tennessee still does. Obviously, Connecticut does. But Iowa does. But there are very few women's basketball teams that draw good crowds, which means what? There's no revenue from ticket sales. Now, granted, I know even women's college basketball now is getting a bunch from TV money. But I'm sorry, Dawn Staley, again, probably the second best coach in college basketball right now behind Gino, even though she just beat him last night. But the second best coach in women's college basketball. There is no way that she should be getting paid the same as Danny Hurley or John Calipari or Bill Self. I'm sorry, because you are not generating the revenue. Now, if she was coaching men's basketball and was having the same success, then absolutely she should. Why? Because she's bringing in more revenue because there's going to be more eyeballs on her. So it's not a question of does she deserve to be paid more? She absolutely does. But I don't think you can make that. It's not an apples to apples comparison. This is apples and oranges because you're just not making as much money.
Yeah, she makes $3.2 million a year. And I mean, she fought because a few years ago, she was down like 1.5 as one of the best coaches in the country, and she fought for that, and other coaches are starting to get a little bit more. But yeah, it is apples and oranges. You can't compare the two.
And it's just like, and we talked about it on the show. I still, and Tom, I always go to you on this when it comes to the WNBA. One of their big hang-ups in their collective bargaining was we want to share in the profits. We want to share in the revenue. Well,
what's wrong with that?
They don't make money. So yeah,
that's the law. They're lying. The WNBA is absolutely lying. I dare them to take a lie detector test. You're trying to tell me with what happened, at least over the past 2 years, you're telling me that they didn't make money? If they didn't make money based on how things went the last couple of years, they need a big time change in leadership.
Well, they did the last 2 years, and do you know why they did the last 2 years?
Caitlin
Clark. Now, actually, last year was the first time that they, under their 20, I'm just reading this right now. I don't know this off the top of my head, but last year was the first time under their 2020 CBA that they made enough money that the players got money from revenue sharing. So before that, to Jason's point, they weren't making any money. They were supplemented by the NBA, and the NBA was covering the WNBA's losses. So they've been a league for now
It'll be 27.
26 years. This is the 26th year. And last year was the first time that they ever made enough money for revenue sharing. And that's why you get paid for how much money, to Jason's point, how much money you bring in and what your value is. I don't care if the WNBA players made $182 million a year per person. If they were bringing in the money because people were watching their sport and watching the product they put on the field. Like, everybody complains that baseball players make all this money and it's ridiculous. Well, you get paid what you're worth. And if you're worth a certain amount of money because you're bringing in money, then by all means you deserve that. Like Jason Tatum and LeBron James deserves $50 million. Oh, LeBron James probably deserves a $100 million contract. He's making a ton of money. But you never hear LeBron James saying, well, guys, I just brought in the league $1 billion, especially back in his heyday before he was kind of super polarizing like he is now. Back in 2008 and 9, don't you think LeBron was worth 200 times what he was getting paid? He was, but he wasn't complaining about it. Last year was the first time that the WNBA made money. And they've been complaining about it for years when it's been supplemented by the NBA. So make your product better. I don't know. Make it more interesting. Try to draw from the people that want to watch your game. If you want your fans to watch it, I don't know. There's 53% of the world are women. Maybe more women should go to WNBA games and support the product so they can make more money. Like, Caitlin Clark deserves more than, what'd you say she's making this year, Tom?
She'll make $527. She would have made $78,000.
Yeah, well, Caitlin Clark probably deserves like $3.8 million. But that doesn't mean that the 12th person on the bench deserves $560,000.
No, they get $270 as a minimum contract.
The last player on the WNBA bench, do you think she deserves $270,000?
It just depends on what you got. Obviously, it works because one of the sticking points was gross revenue versus net revenue. The WNBA this year was offering 70% of net revenue. So after all their expenses were paid, which, Josh, you said it, they paid out to the players this year because they exceeded it. but the players wanted a percentage of the gross before expenses. On the 2020 CBA, they were getting right at 9% of the gross revenue. And now with this new contract, it's just a little under 20%. So it doubled, but I mean, it's still not a huge amount of the resources and revenue that they bring in that's going to go to the players.
I mean, everybody wants to be paid off gross revenue. Every single person does. But we have taxes. We have stuff that we don't get the gross revenue. And in 2024, the NBA lost between $40 and $50 million net. So you're actually a net loss. Everybody's a net loss to that because they implemented team charter flights and things along those lines. So you're losing your entity money. Now, when you can flip the worm and you start making your entity money net-wise, because that's all that we're focused on, yeah, you can say what your salary's whatever gross, but after taxes, you don't take home all your gross pay. So you
can't convince me. You can't convince me that everybody in the WNBA is losing money.
No, I'm saying the league as a whole lost money up until last.
They got some mismanagement going on. If they can't make money based on what they've drawn, increases in merchandise sales, ticket sales, all of the other stuff, their TV deal, which the NBA was very generous in the portion that they gave to the WNBA. But, 10 years ago, yeah, maybe. But there have been teams successful making money. So where's the disconnect with those teams that make the league losing?
Well, I mean, you have some teams that are selling out arenas here and there, Golden State, the Fever, but only 7 of 13 teams last year managed over 10,000 fans per game. Now, even the
do you have that list, Josh?
I can try to find it.
Oh, I thought you had it. I'm going to guess Golden State, the Fever, Las Vegas Aces,
New York,
the Liberty.
Yeah, here's your list. So who'd you say? Golden State,
Fever, the Fever, Las Vegas, yep. New York, Seattle, maybe? The Storm?
Seattle.
Minnesota?
No, Minnesota, 9,900.
Phoenix?
And 57, so close. Phoenix was 11,000.
That's six right there.
You have the powerful Atlanta Dream drawing in 4,400 people a game.
What about Chicago?
9,000. Now, do they play in the United Center?
No.
Only when Caitlin Clark comes to
town.
Yes,
true.
Yeah. So that was when they had 19,000 fans come to the game. But, they average 9,000 fans a game. Washington Mystics, 5,000 fans a game. Dallas Wings, 7,000 fans a game. Good AAA
Dallas was
baseball
last
team.
year? Wow. Even with
Dallas
Paige Beckers?
Wings. Yeah.
They have Paige, and don't they still have Arike Agumbawale?
Yes, they do, although she's a free agent, but yeah,
so,
they do.
As big a draw as
and they have the number 1 draft pick
se-
this coming season.
As big a draw as they have, 7,000 fans a game. So you going back to 2023, pre-Caitlin Clark, there were no teams that averaged over 10,000 fans.
Seriously?
None. The highest was Las Vegas at 9,500 a game. The Fever were 4,000 a game. And in 2024, the Fever were 17,000 a game. So, so 13,000 more times 20. That's a lot more fans per game. That's a lot more ticket dollars. So, yes, there is a correlation to Caitlin Clark joining the WNBA and then finally making money in 2025. Tom, I agree. I don't think that you should be in revision. I should be living in revisionist history and saying that they don't deserve it. Now that they've finally turned over that leaf, sure, they deserve some more money. I get that. And even if it's tied to Caitlin Clark or some of the other players that have come there, yeah, the rising tides raise all ships, and it's rising. But from 2000 to 2024, they were losing at least $40 million a year net. So now that maybe it's turned over a new leaf and they've redid their CBA, by all means, they're making more money now. But to say that you haven't said this, but for them to come out and say they want the same percentage that the NBA players are making is asinine to me, and it's a ridiculous ask.
Yeah, and I know I'm the one that tries to defend the WNBA on this show a lot of times. I was shocked when I saw what the final agreement was on this contract. I did not expect that their salaries were going to go up 5 to 7% or times 500 to 700 times what they were making before. And so, and Nick, the president of the Players Association, she did a heck of a job negotiating. Next time I buy a car, I want to take her with me because she's the one who got that done. Her and Brianna Stewart and Kelsey Plum. And
I mean, you have to give it to them. Golden State sold out every game last year.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to give them credit for that, and credit where credit's due. But you can't have 18,000 going to Golden State and 4,000 going to Atlanta.
But there's no difference though. That's just like in the NBA and Major League Baseball and things like that. Now I'm sure it's more than 4,000, but do you really think people are knocking down the doors to go watch the Washington Wizards right now, or the New Orleans Pelicans? If Zion is hurt, who are you going to watch for New Orleans now? I don't even know who's on their team. And C.J. McCollum there. They got rid of the tall dude from Duke not Zion, the other one. He would have been their number 1 draft pick a couple years before that. You know who I'm talking about.
And I misspoke. It was 5 to 7 times. 500 to 700 times. They'd be making like $100 million a year.
You meant 500%. That's what you meant.
That's it.
But and then I know, especially Josh and Ryan and even Tom to an extent, look at baseball. You try to tell me in the middle of July that you couldn't sit anywhere you wanted to at Fairly Average American Ballpark with the Reds.
He's 100% true. It's right, yeah.
So, I understand what you're trying to say, but let's not pretend that just because it's the NBA or Major League Baseball and it's the guys' sports that every single game is sold out and it's unbelievable. That you're not going to be able to get a ticket to Yankee Stadium for face value. You're not going to be able to get a ticket to Fenway, to Wrigley, to Dodger Stadium. You have your teams, just like you just said there were 7 in the WNBA, and it'd be like trying to get a ticket to the Garden to see the Knicks, or to I about said Boston Garden. They don't play at Boston Garden anymore, or for the Lakers. There's always those franchises that are going to draw, but then you're always going to have your cellar dweller teams, the bottom of the barrel, that aren't going to be anywhere near capacity.
This is updated through March 29th, 2026. The average home attendance for the Washington Wizards is 16,000 fans.
I don't believe that.
The Kings, 16,000. That's just the average attendance for home games.
Now, part of that, because this would be the Caitlin Clark effect on the NBA side of things. As bad as the Wizards are, now, Wizards play the Pelicans. There probably ain't a lot of people there, but guess what? Every night you're going to have LeBron and Steph and KD and Jokic. You're going to have these other teams coming through your city, and so even though attendance might be better, unfortunately for the Wizards or whoever else it might be, they're probably not coming to see you. But, the owner doesn't care because there's behinds in their seats, which means more dollars.
I always push back on when it comes to, the Cubs selling out every game and the Yankees selling out every game and the Dodgers selling out every game and Houston selling out every game or having major attendance. Those are the 4 biggest cities in America. When you have 2 or almost 3 million people in Chicago and you have 300,000 people living in Cincinnati, there's 10 times as many people that live there. There's 10 times as many people that can potentially go to the game. I'm not saying that they're all baseball fans, but attendance is going to be less in cities that don't have the same capacity. When you're looking at the WNBA and you say Atlanta Dream to not even a team with Caitlin Clark, but 4,000 to 16 or 14,000 for somebody else, that's a big difference. But when you have everybody can go to, there's 6 million people who live in New York. Of course, they're going to sell out a ton at Yankee Stadium, regardless of how good their team is. The Cubs are going to sell out at Wrigley Field more often than not because there's 3 million people that live in Chicago as opposed to 300,000 that live in Cincinnati.
I'm not saying it's 3 million, but you could live in Chicago, like literally live in Chicago and be more than an hour away from Wrigley Field. Put a pin in fairly average American ballpark and do a radius of an hour's drive. How many people are within an hour, taking out the population of Cincinnati itself? Again, I'm not saying it's 3 million, but probably a pretty good chunk of people that have the ability to get to those games and they still don't get there.
So in the metropolitan area of Chicago, that would be within an hour. 3 million people live in Chicago. In the metropolitan area that live around Chicago is 9.4 million people. That's within an hour of Chicago, or an hour and a half. But, you could say that. Yeah, I mean, it takes a while to get around there, but that's 9 million people. And they averaged 11,000, 10,000 fans more a game than Cincinnati. And the Cubs were good. I'm not saying that the Cubs don't draw better than Cincinnati, or they shouldn't. Like, they definitely should.
The way they're playing now, they shouldn't.
But I mean, like, you look at the top teams in attendance, and they're not all great, but they are all major cities that are much larger than Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Detroit or anything along those lines.
Hey, speaking of Pittsburgh, how did the 19-year-old wonder kid do in his debut?
Not so good.
He got a double in his first at bat.
He got a double in his first at bat and scored a run.
Yeah.
So why do we say not so good then? Did he have an error in the field or something?
No, because he plays for the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's
that makes sense. We'll go with that. Yeah, I mean, how about that? Not playing a game ever and signing in the major leagues and signing for 9 years and $180 million. Good living if you can make it.
No kidding.
Connor Griffin, he had 3 at-bats, scored a run, had 1 hit, 1 RBI.
So he's already
333. Yeah,
exactly.
333.
Yeah.
He's over 300. He's already got a Hall of Fame career in 1 game. Good for him. But to Ryan's point, he is stuck in Pittsburgh now for 9 years. So
yeah. Well, let's be honest. He's going to be stuck in Pittsburgh for 4, and then they're going to trade him at some point in time.
This is the first time that they've really spent money on somebody, though, in quite a long time. Now,
it is. It'll
be interesting to see how big that number gets to keep Paul Skeens.
You might have to start the average annual salary at $180 million to keep Paul Skeens.
Yeah,
that guy's incredible, and I mean, I think he's with Pittsburgh for a minimum of 4 more years. But I mean, if they came to him and said, "Hey, Paul, we're going to give you 6 years at $280 million," I would turn that down. As crazy as that sounds, I mean, if he's the best pitcher in baseball, you have to think he's probably going to get $50 million a year. I mean, who knows in 4 years what he might get?
True, and it's not like I sit down and watch Pittsburgh Pirates games on purpose, but I happen to actually be with our friend Scott on opening day. We're at Sun King in Indianapolis. No free ads. Sun King will take lifetimes of your product, please. But that game happened to be on, and Skeens was on the mound, and he got pulled in the first inning for giving up 5 runs. But in a very Pittsburgh sort of way, only one of those runs was earned. But he gets removed, and the Pirates are down 5-2 in the middle of the first inning. I just had to laugh because it's just a Pittsburgh thing to do. And Mitch Sefton, or anybody in the Sefton family, if you're listening, I apologize because it's got to be hard being a Pittsburgh fan. But Trying to think. I think at this point it was still, I think it was 1-0. Pittsburgh was up, and there was runner on first and second. Ball gets hit to center field. What's the number one thing as an outfielder in general that you don't do? You don't take 2 steps towards the ball as soon as it's hit. I know that, and I don't know nothing about baseball. This kid looked like, I say kid, the center fielder for Pittsburgh looked like a little leaguer because he comes sprinting towards the ball, and you can just see it in his eyes. He goes, uh-oh, and he's got to turn around. It goes over his head. They score 2 runs. And then 2 batters later, loses it in the sun, drops a routine pop fly, and now the best or second best pitcher in the league has to get pulled in the opening day game in the middle of the first inning.
I'm looking at his stats, and it's showing that for Paul Skeens, those errors that their center fielder made, they weren't errors. They counted them as hits.
Give him errors.
So his ERA after his first game was 67.50 was his ERA. Then April 1st, he pitched against the Reds, 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 run. So his ERA went down from 67.5 to 9.53 in 1 game. So it's going to be way back down.
How he could not get errors on both of those plays is beyond me.
That's crazy.
That first one was absolutely laughably bad. Like, high school kids don't make that error, and this dude's making however much to be the starting center fielder of a Major League Baseball team.
That happened a couple games later. Skeens wasn't pitching, but the same center fielder did basically the same thing, and they gave him a hit and not an error. Crazy. It's just crazy. If I was Paul Skeens, I would be I'd be calling into the league office and saying, whoa, hold on a second here. Those have to be errors. But so I know we've talked about stretches of sports and what the best stretch of sports is, but where we're sitting right now, we have first off, you had the women's national semifinal last night. You have the men's tonight. You have the women's final tomorrow, the men's final on Monday. Oh, and by the way, you have a little golf tournament called the Masters coming up next week. Great time of sports, but I have to ask you guys one question because this came out, a couple things. Jason Kelce is going to be on the broadcast for the Masters Par 3 tournament on Wednesday, and he's also moving to the number 2 team on ESPN for their football coverage. I don't listen to the podcasts. I know Carrie does, but what's the fascination with Jason Kelce, and why is he getting shoved down our throat on ESPN?
He's got a big mouth. Yeah, he's got a big mouth.
He does. I'm not going to say he's entertaining in the way that McAfee is, but I like him and he's fun to listen to because he doesn't take himself seriously. Like, he's not all uptight about it, but he's not unserious. You know, it's not like it's shtick and it's slapstick and things like that.
So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, he's knowledgeable, absolutely, but he's not real uptight and stiff, and he can kind of like McAfee in the way that he can have a conversation about just about anything and have some working knowledge on it, and doesn't come off, again, he doesn't come off stiff and stuck up and snobbish or know-it-all or anything like that. I find him entertaining. I like him better than Stephen A. or some buffoon like that. Or, excuse me, I was a fan, not anymore, Dan Orlovsky. Get off my lawn, Dan.
Well, they moved. So Dan Orlovsky is the guy that moved out of that, or he was one of the guys that got moved out of that number 2 ESPN NFL team in favor of Jason Kelce. When you say things that are just completely outlandish like that, just for talking points, like he said against Fernando Mendoza, insane. And I'm glad that they had the IU had their pro day. It was televised by NFL Network, and you had guys like Louis Riddick coming out and saying, Fernando Mendoza showed literally everything that you wanted in a number 1 overall pick. He looks like he's been in the weight room. He's now 6'5" and 240 pounds. I think there were 65 passes thrown. and there were 2 drops.
Yeah, it was he went 53 for 56 with 2 drops, so there was only one pass that he threw that was uncatchable.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
and this is for a guy that only threw to make his guys look better and feel more comfortable. Like, guys turn down throwing all the time in the combine and at pro days. He didn't have to do any of that. He didn't even have to show up to the combine outside of doing some interviews, and he was going to be the number 1 pick. So that tells you everything that you need to know about Fernando Mendoza and being the number 1 overall pick. Do you guys think with Kirk Cousins signing that basically 1-year deal with Las Vegas that Kirk Cousins will just be a high-paid backup, or do you think he starts the first couple games for Las Vegas?
I'm shocked. And Kirk Cousins, he has made the 3rd most money ever in the NFL. It's ridiculous, but I don't think that's the answer. Is having him. If you want them to improve, you're going to put Mendoza in there. But Raiders doing Raiders things, I think probably the beginning of the season, Cousins will be the starting quarterback.
I'm kind of the opposite of Tom. I think that's a great thing for Fernando Mendoza from this standpoint. He has done nothing since he stepped foot on Bloomington but show that he wants to be a student of the game and learn and soak up everything. He is going, and to me, I don't know that you're going to find many guys that are going to be much better to learn from than a guy like Kirk Cousins. And so Mendoza is not going to – I'm not going to say he's not going to go in and compete for the starting job, because he will. He's a competitor. But he's not going to go in there with that attitude like, this is my job and I'm taking it. I think he's going to be a sponge, and I think that marriage between he and Cousins is going to be great. And if Mendoza is not the starting quarterback week 1 this year, I hope he doesn't play a game this year, simply because I feel like if he gets put in week 6, week 7, week 8, that probably means either Cousins got hurt because the offensive line is so bad, although they spent a ton of money to shore up that offensive line, or they're losing so badly, which means you're putting Mendoza in a situation to not be successful. So I want him to either have earned the starting spot week 1 or to not play a game this year and sit and learn, and then next year step in and be ready to go.
To me, it sounds, I mean, again, clearly crimson-colored glasses here, but over the last 5 or 6 years, I don't know if there's been somebody that is seemingly more prepared to take over as a number 1 pick quarterback-wise than Fernando Mendoza. And this is coming from a guy that, my team drafted Caleb Williams. But what Mendoza and his preparation, what I've seen and what he's done, I feel like he is ready from day 1 to start in and be the starter. I think this was a signing of Cousins more, to your point, Jason, to be a sponge, or for Fernando Mendoza to have somebody that he can sponge off of and get the knowledge, because, I think him and Kirk Cousins are going to work well together. They both seem like great guys. They said if the Raiders win this year, they might be running for president and vice president because of how good of guys those two seem to be. But I think Fernando Mendoza is ready. He's been working on taking snaps under center. I'm excited for him. I'm excited to watch the Raiders. I'm excited to root for the Raiders. I need an AFC team because the Colts continuously do nothing to give me a reason to like an AFC team.
There are arguments both sides of it. Me, when I look at it, I think about Peyton Manning. I think about Troy Aikman, guys that were number 1 picks that won Super Bowls. But there are just as many. Patrick Mahomes sat out all but 1 game his first season. Look how things have gone for him. It just kind of depends on the individual.
And I mean, you look at Aaron Rodgers and you look at Jordan Love and the way that their progression through the Packers went. And obviously Jordan Love hasn't won yet, but he's turned into is he a top 10 quarterback
in
the league?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
I'm not buying it.
you know, so
Be careful saying that up there.
there
They
are
don't scare me.
there is a lot of evidence that points to sitting is not a bad thing. Now, you also have to look at, there's a lot of times quarterbacks fail, and let's look at the Super Bowl winning quarterback from this year, Sam Darnold. Most of the time, if you're the number one pick, and this is a vast majority of the time, you're going to a bad team. They have the number one pick because they are bad. You don't have many situations in the NFL like you had with Golden State and like you're going to have with the Pacers this year, where you have your team, but you just dealt with injuries in a year, and so then you ended up with that number one pick. But like, look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold got thrown in with the Jets and got his brains beat in, and everybody thought, oh, he's terrible, he can't play, he's washed up. Well, then he gets into the right situation where he's supported. He's got a good support staff, coaching system behind him. They run the right offense. They got a good roster, things like that. So again, that's my worry, is I don't want Mendoza being thrown out there simply because he's the number one pick, because I mean, I do think the Raiders have improved their roster, but again, if he is the starter week one, all signs point to the fact, because they have signed Kirk Cousins. Yes, I know it. They got him for a steal because the Falcons are eating a big portion of the salary and just the way that it's structured and everything. But I think that signals, if he is the starter, that means he went out and earned it. They didn't just go, well, you're the number one pick, we're starting you, sort of thing. And so I just want, again, because we're Josh and I aren't used to this, where IU guys are going to be in the conversation, and in this instance is going to be the number one pick, and is going to, I mean, the last time that this happened, I think, was Anthony Thompson.
Yeah.
That you had a guy coming out where you're like, hey, this is an IU guy I got to watch. I mean, I followed the Cardinals, for crying out loud, because that's where Anthony Thompson went to. And so, you know, it's exciting to have an IU guy out there, and I want him to be as successful as humanly possible.
Yeah, I don't know if it's, and it's obviously the talking points and the questions like, is it better to sit or start? You know, you look at the really successful guys that we've talked about: Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Carson Palmer, Jordan Love. That obviously worked out. Now the Chiefs, when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, traded up from like the 29th pick to the 10th or 11th pick to take Patrick Mahomes. So if they were already drafting 29th, they obviously had a very successful team before Mahomes became the starter, and they had Alex Smith that could kind of, you know, keep everything steady until Mahomes obviously became the starter and has done what he's done. But football has kind of changed, I think, since you have to go back to Aaron Rodgers. Now, this is 21 years ago that he was drafted. Jordan Love sat, and the Packers did a good job in thinking ahead, but he sat 3 seasons because Aaron Rodgers was the MVP of the league multiple years at that time. I don't know. I'm hoping, to your guys' point, that the Raiders have the foundation to be able to let Fernando Mendoza start. The Raiders have been a terrible franchise for as long as we all can remember, but they do have a seemingly rebuilt offensive line like they did this offseason. They still have draft capital to continue to improve that. They've got Brock Bowers, who's one of the top tight ends in the league. They have Ashton Genty, who they drafted last year in the first round. So they have weapons around Fernando Mendoza. Now, their defense could be terrible, but if the offensive line is good enough, I think Fernando Mendoza should start. If it's not, I would just play Kirk Cousins and until Raiders fans create such an uproar because they want to see Mendoza play. But if I was a betting man, and I'm not, obviously, you guys know me well enough, I don't gamble, I would say Mendoza's the opening day starter for Las Vegas.
If we were betting, I'm putting my money on Cousins being the starter.
Unfortunately, I am too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tale as old as time. Usually when you bring somebody in like that, it's usually what happens. And another thing that some people, who listen to our show might not know is not only will Fernando Mendoza have Kirk Cousins to lean on, but he will have the greatest quarterback to ever live in his ear also, and Tom Brady.
Well, that's true.
Tom Brady, you look at the national championship game and everything like that. Tom Brady, it's very clear Tom Brady likes Fernando Mendoza. It's very clear, it's very evident. He will have, now Tom's not always going to be there. Tom will, not be there on Sundays, of course, or, whenever, in what game he's calling, he will not be there, on the sideline or whatever. But Fernando Mendoza will be under the learning tree of Kirk Cousins, who, ideally, his time in Minnesota and his time in Washington was, good enough. But he will also have Tom Brady to listen to and to learn from. So, many people might not know that, but I think that's a big factor. But, obviously, if I was putting money on it, I would say Kirk Cousins would be the starter, because there's a reason they're going to pay him that much money, or, going to give up or whatever to do that. But I do think it would be a disservice to put Fernando Mendoza in a position where he is not aimed for success. And it's the same thing. Now, it's two different total franchises, but it's the same thing what they did with Shedeur in Cleveland. Cleveland's a dumpster fire as it is, and Shedeur's not that good of a quarterback. But if you put a rookie quarterback in a position where he's not aimed for success, it can go downhill fast. And I don't think in any way, shape, or form Fernando Mendoza deserves that at all.
Tom, this is kind of going back, and we don't have to spend any time on it, but we got a text from a good friend, Scott Weiland. He wants to know, do you have stock in the WNBA?
No. No. I just believe in fairness.
If so, if you had stock in the WNBA, we were going to use the powers that we have on Beyond the Game and all the listeners that we have to make sure that we drove that stock price up.
Oh yeah.
But just wanted to check
Nope.
to see if you had any stock in the WNBA.
Nope. Good.
Well, it's
Good question.
Hey, we're going to put our picks in for the game, but before we do, just a quick thought, because Ryan mentioned the dumpster fire that is the Cleveland Browns. How about the news that came out this week that their owner has come out, and I can't remember exactly how he said it, but basically the verbiage that he used is making it sound like Deshaun Watson is going to be the starting quarterback
It's gonna
again
happen.
this year.
Yeah.
sweet Lord.
It's going to happen.
That would be a Cleveland thing to do.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that is awesome. I love it.
Well,
That would be great.
so, Josh, as you said, we're coming up on, well, actually, we're just at the beginning of the best probably week or two of sports in the calendar, and it kind of continues, because and now it won't be as fun this year because the Pacers won't be involved, but you go both NCAA tournaments, into the Masters, NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, WrestleMania, all this stuff kind of kicks in, and then unfortunately we have to go about 2 months before football comes back. So there's really only about a 2-month dead period. But we have the NCAA tournament men's semifinals tonight. Game 1 is going to be the Illinois Fighting Illini taking on the Connecticut Huskies. Illinois is favored by 1.5. It's Illinois minus 1.5.
UConn.
Really?
Yeah.
Any reason why, or just a feeling that
Yeah,
you got?
just a feeling.
Just a feeling.
I think Hurley getting that win against Duke, I think it's destiny.
Oh.
Although I'm sticking with my original pick though.
Yeah.
But
I'm
yeah.
also going to go with UConn as well. I like I've come around kind of like you, Jason, on Brad Underwood. Seems like a good dude. I didn't like him at the start, but I don't know, man. There's something with Danny Hurley that he's just different. And I think UConn has played in bigger games, and they've won bigger games than Illinois, anybody on that roster's played in. So, yeah, I'm going strictly based off coaching. I'm going to go with Danny Hurley and UConn to win it.
Yeah, I mean, based off what I saw of yesterday's practice for Illinois, this is going to be a true road game for UConn. But these two teams played November, December, and UConn won pretty handily. I think the momentum that UConn has is on a different level, and I think our Indiana boy, Braylon Mullins, will have a decent game. He'll have 10 or 15 points, but give me UConn.
I'm going to be the one oddball. I'm going to take Illinois. The way that they're playing, I don't know. I feel like it's going to, I don't know that it's going to end well for UConn. Like, meaning, because obviously if you lose, it doesn't end well because you're in the Final Four. But I can see Illinois by double figures possibly.
Oh,
yeah.
Heyo.
I didn't say by a billion like somebody else on our show. Didn't say that.
I like
but
it.
I could see this getting that 11, 12 point range.
Wow.
All right.
That's a hot take.
Three with UConn, 1 with Illinois.
Yep.
And then the nightcap tipping off around 8:49-ish. We have number 1 seed Michigan Wolverines, the Fighting Dusty Mays, against number 1 seed Arizona. The teams are 35-3 and 36-2. That's some pretty good basketball right there, boys and girls. Michigan is actually favored by 1.5 points.
So we should have 2 really good games.
Should, yes.
Well, let me go ahead and do this. I hate to do this. I can't believe I'm doing this, but
I can't believe it either.
I'm going with Michigan.
Oh, wow.
And you even said it. You even said the name.
Yeah, I know.
That's a bigger upset than Michigan beating or Arizona beating Michigan. That's the biggest upset of the day. You said Michigan.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Arizona. I know Michigan can score it, but what I saw in that second half against Purdue out of Arizona, those guys are physical, man. They get to the line. They can just smother you and bury you. I don't know if Michigan is physical enough to hang with Arizona. I'm rooting for a Big Ten team to win a national championship. So even though I'm picking UConn and Arizona, I'm hoping it goes the opposite way. But I'm gonna go with Arizona.
Give me Arizona in an absolute barn burner. I think both teams score 90 here. This is going to be big-time offense.
I can see that happening. I can see it turning into a track meet. And, Josh, this is to your point. Michigan has just looked like they are on another level compared to other teams in the tournament so far. But I think it's the size and physicality is able to match up with Michigan's size. And I kind of have to pick them because I picked Arizona in my bracket. But I do think of the 2 games, this one is going to be the better of the 2. I keep going back and forth in my head on who to take. I would be the least bit surprised if Michigan wins, but I think that physicality over a 40-minute game wins the day. So give me the Arizona Wild Kitties.
Yeah, I mean, one more point. Purdue, outside of I would say Fletcher Lawyer, they're a pretty physical team, especially inside with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough. And Arizona just freaking manhandled them in the second half, smothered them. They couldn't do anything, and they're as physical as I've seen college basketball in a long time.
So based on the picks that you've made, let's see who everybody thinks going to win it all. Let me just go get it out of the way. I'm going with the team from Ann Arbor to win it all.
And you said that when the tournament first
Yes, I
started.
did.
I remember you saying that. So this isn't just jumping on the bandwagon.
I'm going with the Big Ten thing there.
There you go. All right. Ryan?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I picked them. I don't see how I go against them. I think they've been the best team in the country all year. Give me Arizona, and they win it. And Indy, like they should have. What was it? Was it 97?
90, yeah.
When
Yep.
the last time they won it. So.
Mike Bibby and Miles Simon. I'm going to have to – I picked about the only thing that I've done so far correctly is pick Arizona. Every other pick I think I made was wrong on my bracket, but I'm going to stick with Arizona. Even if Illinois wins, I would take Arizona. So, yeah, I think they cut down the Nets in Indy as well.
And we're going to make it 3 out of 4. I'm taking Arizona. Again, I picked them in my bracket. Also, though, I will say whoever wins that game is who's winning the national championship, in my opinion. Whoever wins Arizona, Michigan. I've picked Arizona to win, but I think the winner of that game ends up winning the title. So, I mean, we spoke it here on Beyond the Game, so that means it's going to happen. All right, another show come and gone. Gentlemen, have a great week. Everybody have a happy Easter. Beyond the Game brought to you by Batesville Chrysler Dodge Jeep, Gillenhow Funeral Home, Acra Automotive, Decatur County Recycling, Walters Tire, Hamilton Tebby Law Office, and Buy Right Auto. For Ryan Higginbotham, Tom Fleming, and Josh Lee, this is Jason Simpson. We'll see y'all next week.